All right, we are live. Good to see you today, my crypto friends. We here on the EOS podcast, and we have a special project for you today. We have Eva.Coop, the Uber of blockchain, coming to you today. So we've got the team here. We've got Dardan, who is the Chief Optimization Officer. We've got Raphael, who is the Chief Technical Officer. We've got Jake, a team member advisor, and from the wonderful show, the Dappcast, where he goes through these dApps. You can also find Eva on the Dappcast that Jake did a show on. So let's get started here. And Dardan, why don't you tell a little about yourself, and the team can introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the next part here.
Well, first off, thank you for the invitation. That's really great. So that's appreciated. My background is not in is software engineering or anything like that. I did a bachelor degree in political science at McGill University, Montreal. I've been a military officer, infantry officer for 3 years, and right now I'm at Eva. And basically, what is my interest, my field of interest within Eva, is to find a new way of building new economies that are more democratic and in which all the resources are shared among the people who are involved within the ecosystem.
All right, Raphael.
So my name is Raphael. I'm from Canada as well, the French part, Quebec. I act as a CTO of Eva. I've been onto software engineering for my entire life, basically. Started as a child, and then I've been programming, doing reverse engineering, doing a lot of stuff on the computer since then. And I started seeing blockchain as a revolutionary way of doing software probably 1.5 years ago. I came in late, but I saw that the possibilities were really, really awesome, like to create companies with new model of business. And I was doing deep learning before this. So my background is in software engineering, and I'm the CTO here at Eva.
All right. And Mr. Jake from the Dappcast.
Hey, yes, I am. I have a background in computer engineering. I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, so I had a focus there in aviation. And I worked at Rockwell Collins, and that's when I first heard about Bitcoin. My boss mentioned how he was heating his home and his basement with Bitcoin mining rigs back in 2014.
Way. How interesting.
Yeah.
I went to Sierra Academy of Aeronautics, but I almost went to Embry-Riddle out in Florida. Is that where you went?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I went.
How cool, man. You look like a pilot. That's awesome. You got
not as a
look to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's just after you after you get to know a lot of these pilots, it's kind of scary to know that they're going to fly your planes.
Oh my gosh, I definitely second that. Some of my good friends are pilots, and it's like, you have hundreds of lives in your hands, and I'm not going to tell anyone about you.
Exactly. That's why I'm very thankful for UAVs and AI.
Yeah, perfect. I know we need the AI and the machine learning to take over here, Raphael. So, yeah, it sounds like, you guys come from some diverse backgrounds, but you found your way to the EOS blockchain. So kind of on that note, what do you think the most exciting thing going on in EOS right now is, and kind of where's the whole blockchain at?
Honestly, on my side, we decided to do Eva before choosing EOS. And the one thing we were looking at is like, where can we have like a real application where people don't have to notice it's working on blockchain? So like the benefits of blockchain are present, but like not the problem, which has been scalability that we've seen a lot with Ethereum and other platforms as well, like Neo. So basically, it's the delegated proof of stake that is enabling like many transactions at a time. And the thing I'm excited to see the most right now is inter-blockchain communication. So we can have side chains, and the community has been talking a lot about it. So I'm excited to see this. But what I've been excited so far to see is how many transactions we can do. And now it makes ride sharing possible on the blockchain, and ride sharing is one of the industries where you can remove the third-party middleman. So we're pretty excited for scalability.
And one amazing thing about EOS is when we joined in, what we found was a huge community, a community with other decentralized applications, but as well as with like a potential block producers. And this community was really helpful. Just to mention a few of them: EOS Venezuela, EOS Israel, or other DApps. Like, I mean, they're amazing people, like Everypedia, building this amazing content and helping each other. So that was also a great part when we joined EOS, was this whole community that.
Yeah, and the whole hackathon with Block One, like we flew to London and met them, and it's been really great so far to have to meet the community too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, someone I mentioned this in a show with BitJoy, the past show, but I really think this part about the blockchain being invisible to the user is so important. It sounds like that's something that Eva is going to be integrated and focusing on also. But the conversation in the past has been this conversation to the user about all these steps and things that you need to learn so that you can implement blockchain in your life. And that's not the steps that are going to get adopted. It's this more of this focus on the UX, how people interact without knowing the fact that it's actually easier or just as easy with some extra benefits. And the invisible blockchain, I think, is this next step that we're starting to get into. So cool that you guys kind of
I think we in blockchain communities we've spoken a lot about education, the fact that users need a lot of education, but the truth is if you want to do a mass market product, people are often lazy and they don't want to learn some new steps about like how to handle complicated keys or complicated systems. So the challenge is to engineer blockchain systems that are simple and like really efficient to use for users. So the UX is awesome.
So the idea is really to remove the challenge is to remove the barriers so that anyone, my grandmother, my girlfriend, my friends, can just use Eva without having, or any DApps without having to play with like private public keys or several cryptocurrencies. So just to have like the service, like in the case of Eva, to move from point A to point B, and that's it.
Yeah, and I just realized this last week, but we're just focusing. I feel like a lot of the people in the crypto community are focusing too much on the blockchain and how it can change people's lives and industries and create separate ones. But what we need to understand is, unless we have the human attention and have, you know, mass market adoption, then it won't really matter. These companies will just create what we already have created out from right under us. You looked at that with the music industry. They created a music-based blockchain where they could enable better payouts to artists and things like that. But Spotify just is like, okay, we're just going to create this, and now we're just going to open our whole platform up to every single artist out there. So it really doesn't matter what that other blockchain company did, because now the current person who already has the mass market share is just going to innovate regardless of what they're going to do.
And that's very true too. I think Uber just announced that they will be giving shares to some of their partner drivers in this idea of, you know, the tokenomics in which drivers have a word to say within the ecosystem. So you're right, Jake, on that, saying that traditional companies are trying to kind of blockchain themselves, to decentralize themselves. And so the idea is really to get to the, you know, this humanistic approach, to get to the people and explain what are the benefits of using the application, but also that the user experience is even better.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Why don't you tell a kind of the user story for Eva of how you envision this app working, and then kind of what the benefits are over something like Uber.
Yeah, at the end of the show, we'll be able to send a sneak peek of the whole app because it's developed and we're launching it. So basically, awesome. People, they actually connect with their phone number, like an account is binded to a phone. It's working on iOS and Android. So like the whole encryption part, the private key is living under the roof within the app, and it's communicating with the EOS blockchain. So basically the user is using an app that is even simpler than Uber to use, basically, because you just choose wherever you want to go and then you pay with your credit card. So we created this third party bank within the app that issues stable tokens. So basically, we have a stable token that we've built on EOS that is backed by US dollar, and then people, rider and driver, exchange this token within a smart contract that they bought with credit card. At the beginning, we were wondering if we would only take cryptocurrencies, but we really created the app in order for my grandmother to use it, and we had to process credit cards, so we created this fiat bridge within the app for this stable token. So basically, we have a rider and a driver. The driver has the same app as the rider, but he has driver capabilities on the smart contract so that he can put himself online. And there's communities that can start themselves a bit all around the world. So for example, I have a taxi company and I decide that I want the technology to compete with Uber. As long as I am compliant with giving out 5% to the tokenomics, I can use this technology, decides what's the price per minute, the price per kilometer, decide what's my ride dispatching algorithm, and all those parameters. So the app is working like Uber with a map and really simple to use.
And I think that the most important point for the future rider and future driver members is to keep in mind that the driver will get more money, and then that the rider, because the share that Eva takes is much more lower than what Uber takes, so the rider pays less. So at the end of the day, everyone gets more money in their pocket. And the idea is also for the people who have more like a social consciousness, is that the economy is kept locally. The problem with third-party middlemen, and we can point out Uber, but also Airbnb and other applications like that, is that they're aggregating the economy. They're basically taking 1/4 of each transaction and investing it in countries where they have like some tax benefits. So let's call it like that way. So the idea is it really to the people that it's a grassroots project, that the project is local and the economy stays local, and it benefits the one providing the service, which is in this case the driver member.
It's also really cool for the driver because when you get your income from rides, for example, I'm driving around town and I'm giving rides, I can choose, I can decide that 15% per se will be invested in the reward token, so I can receive passive income. So like drivers can become in a certain way shareholders within the tokenomics, so that these people driving all around can be also part of Eva. So Eva is not Dardan and I and Jake, it's all the drivers and all the riders. So like Eva is like this whole decentralization of ride sharing together.
And also the future token holders will have a word to say, because the token, the Eva reward utility token is a governance token. So within the ecosystem, to choose future decision regarding the development of the application or a future project within the Eva network. So that's a good point. To all involved interests have a stake within the ecosystem.
I really like this idea of these microeconomies, and it sounds like Eva's fitting in with that as well. Bancor has this really cool vision of every network having an economy into itself. So every small group of specific network having its own transactions, and what you're talking about is kind of that shift as well, where instead of some mega corporation funneling out all the funds out of all these networks all over the world into one place, and then doing that, it's a way to keep funds within their microeconomies, benefit the people actually exchanging value there. And so that's a huge, bigger picture idea of what Eva's doing.
It's also a solution for local governments, because right now we're seeing, especially in the people like writing industry, there's a delocalizing happening right now. With, like, you used to have the taxis industry that is year after year losing some market share, and then you see companies like Uber or Lyft delocalizing this industry that used to be local. So it's seen as a solution, but it's not only for like the transport of people industry that has application in many industries where technology just arrived, and like you had this third parties that were actually bringing back the money in another area. For example, here in Montreal, where we have Uber, this money doesn't stay local because the profits are recorded by Uber. Yeah.
Basically, the members, what they get is the control over their mobility, their economy, and their data. And this is aligned with our three main goals, values, which are life, liberty, and localization. So the idea to localize the economy, to keep it at the city level, and to benefit everyone involved.
Yeah, and so that localization, it seems like that's almost a selling point when you're going into these cities. Do you picture, or let's just talk about Montreal, when you were trying to get accepted into Montreal, it sounds like you've talked to the city. Was that one of your selling points?
Yes and no. I mean, when we talk to politicians, it's some more, they don't understand all these aspects. They don't understand what's blockchain.
They heard about Bitcoin and like the regulations part, but it's like, it's a big no. They don't see yet what's blockchain all about in the way it can revolutionize the way people do companies.
But what we're telling them is this local entity structure. So what Eva promotes is to have these local cooperatives. Cooperatives are member-owned companies. So they are legal registered companies, but owned by their members. And the way it will be working, at least for the province of Quebec and Ontario, is there will be a multi-stakeholders cooperative that will be in charge of the daily operations, the security issues, let's say for the who's driving, what do they need to have. They will be responsible for to pay the taxes, to pay subsidies if there are, to set all the driving parameters like the price per kilometer, the search pricing, price per minute, dispatch call algorithms. So all this will be the responsibility of the local co-op. And these politicians like it because first they understand this language, they understand what is a cooperative, they understand what's the goal, but also they like the fact that it's a more local way to for the problem of Uber or eventually Airbnb and other applications like this.
Okay, so you're saying that actually the sell to each government is that you're going to have more of a local company that you can work with here, so they can follow whatever your local laws, regulations are, and each of them are going to do that individually as opposed to someone.
Yeah, so basically this is how the whole like structure is. So basically there's communities all around that are recording in the smart contract that they're recorded, and now they can operate the protocol or the app. And basically those communities have the cryptographic access to add drivers within their community. So basically it means that when a driver is added to a community, is compliant with local laws, so that they respect depending on their jurisdiction, we have different laws, and those drivers have to be compliant with those laws to be added in their community. So we have a community level authorization on the smart contract, so that communities can decide parameters of their proposal within Eva ride-sharing technology, but they can also decide if they can elevate the privilege from a rider onto a driver in this community as well.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
You see this a lot in different countries. I believe in Korea, they just banned Uber because what Uber did is they just came in regardless of what the law was and just were like, okay, we're going to take over the market.
Yeah.
And so Korea has kicked them out now, and they've now put in their own Uber-like system.
And I definitely think it's a better approach because all those nodes or communities or cooperatives launching in some cities, they're entrepreneurs from the locality, so they know pretty well what's their society and how it's operating. They know well their market, and they know well how to operate within it instead of companies coming from the US installing in those markets.
And I think one of the good approach is, and we said it earlier, is to have this humanistic approach. So the community there, let's say the community is based in Montreal, and in Montreal there's a lot of, let's say, driver members coming from Algeria or Tunisia. So this community can organize, festivals, can organize gatherings, football games. So the idea is really to bring a sense of belonging for the driver members, so they can feel that they have like this entity supporting them within their daily operations. And Jake mentioned Korea, but even if, where you're from, Brandon, in BC, I mean, Uber is not allowed in Vancouver. And Vancouver is one of the greatest cities of Canada. But the reason is the governments don't like this approach of centralized companies coming in and just like setting up their own rules.
Yeah, it makes it makes it so much more flexible. Like Jake was saying about Uber just kind of coming in with this blunt force, and we're gonna just see what happens, because there's even small things just within the States. Like some places, like maybe where Jake lives or where I live, people would want to and would be okay with getting picked up in an old pickup truck, but like that's not going to fly with Uber. But within these communities with different social norms, it's something that opens up a whole door of possibilities. And then you talk about not just between state and state within a small where I am, but we talk about globally these whole different cultures of how ride sharing is utilized. And Uber is just such a such a strict box to basically put the whole world in, just operate this way, and just so that's interesting how you guys are tackling it.
The great point of having this decentralized network is, let's say you're from like you said, a small city, and within the local community you want to develop interurban mobility application, then you can with us implement it there. So we can develop it and then you implementing here in your city. So we can develop all these specific settings for each locality. We've been talking with some folks in Burundi. We're planning to launch there this winter, and he asked us, one of the guys asked us, will it be possible to have the option of normal cars, but also of these little tuk-tuks with like three seats for the motorcycles? And we said yes, like why not? We can just change some settings of the app, and then you can have within your community other choices that other communities don't have. And this is the beauty of decentralization.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys are basically a software company, and then as Jake put it in the Dappcast, you're enabling all of these communities, all these Uber-like communities around the world. So you guys are basically building the sandbox for everyone to build their own specialized, community-driven, localized Uber on top of. So
exactly, with all the same branding and the same quality insurance in all those communities, so people can be confident with the name and actually have a safe ride.
So what is kind of the common thread or the quality assurance? How do you tackle that over kind of the entire globe?
Well, I will say it's a step-by-step process. So right now we're working one by one with all the people from different communities who have an interest in having this ride-sharing application. First and foremost is to have this. We want to make sure that these communities are aware of this decentralized process, so that we don't want local communities because the communities will be able to take whatever share they want to take from each ride. We don't want a community, let's say, who takes 20% of each ride, because this will be the same as Uber, So at first there was just like all the governance process structure of like a proper Dapp, and this idea of taking less to give more to the people. And then also is all the service providings. So there must be a customer service there. So the idea is to support if there is a problem or if someone loses something within the ride, and then Jake and I will be working on this to more like formalize all this process of quality insurance.
We also have an on-chain rating system so that the ride is actually dispatched in priority to a well-rated driver. So the system provides an incentive to get the closest driver from your location, but also the best rated. So basically, if you're a bad human being or you're just unpleasant, you'll get bad ratings, and you'll be unprioritized when it's time to have a ride. So that's a mechanism we have technologically to avoid bad drivers. But also we have the Eva Foundation that at first will be deciding each new communities and approving them to make sure that the people there at the foundation will do a vote to actually confirm this new community. And this new community has to be a solid team, a serious team as well. And they have to be compliant with the law they have, and to like be to be in law, because they're having the Eva branding and they're now part of the whole protocol and with their community.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned already about the drivers having ratings on chain, I think we should also have riders have ratings on chain, because if they throw up and do stuff like that.
It's not a shield, it's already there.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And the idea, as you mentioned, the roles of the foundation, so the Eva Foundation is really yes, to develop and maintain the technology, but is also the first is to ensure an intercooperative governance to make sure that everyone understands the process. If there's a problem, we're helping the local people there. If they get a lawsuit from, I don't know, a Uber there, or a taxi company, or anyone within the city. So it's really to work hand in hand with these cooperative communities to develop, to make their marketing plan, and also all the financial needs.
At this point, we built the actual ride-sharing app, the MVP, but right now we're working on the whole community tool, so that administrators of a community can actually see what rides are currently going on in their community and do some kind of quality insurance, so that they can decide their price. And we're doing a web platform for communities, so that using scatter, so that these communities don't have to know software or use a Unix terminal to actually operate with the technology. And we'll be providing them all the tools as the foundation to operate well.
And as Raphael mentioned, this web platform will be online by this winter. And by the tools, we already have a model business plan, a model marketing plan. So how to study the market, to know which customers should be yours, and where to promote Eva, where to put posters, where to distribute promotional codes. So all this is in process of being made.
Yeah, and what's cool also is that the marketing strategies, we defined 2 marketing strategies that these communities can actually use within the smart contract. So they can basically issue some promotional codes from their own community, so that they can distribute it in their market. And there's also a referral system that is built in, and the community is deciding what are the parameters of this referral system. So it's pretty abstract, but it's all tools that we'll bring to communities to establish well.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're basically going to build a framework that needs to be followed to kind of ensure some sort of Eva branding, so that you're supporting them being, there's driver ratings, and there's these things that kind of keep them in line. But as well, it sounds like they're going to need to be, the community is going to need to be started up by some sort of company itself that's going to follow
Yeah.
the local regulations. It's not just, I can't just go to Santa Cruz and start giving Eva rides. I'd need to have like do some work first.
It depends. As I said, as I mentioned, is a case per case. It can be companies, it can be a local group of drivers, it can be anyone or anyone who has the potential to just develop the community. But it depends on the city. In a city like Montreal or Vancouver or Seoul in South Korea, the regulations are so high that there's a need to have a local registered entity. But let's say in a place like Pristina, Kosovo, there's no regulations there. There's no taxi regulations. So you can just like launch your application with a bunch of people and make it run. You might have a community, like you will be having like some sort of recognized community, but there's no need for a legal established company or a legal established cooperative. So it's a case per case scenario, but on a large scale, these communities can be taxi companies, can be a bunch of drivers like Uber partner drivers, can be people from the folks I was telling from Burundi who just want to have a ride sharing application that is not Uber within their city. So it can be anyone who has the potential to just develop it, but it needs to come from like the local groups.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned that that they're going to have within their sandbox, they're going to have the ability to change the rates that the community's paid or that comes back to the drivers, I think. Is there a range? Do you have a cap on that basically? Because you said Uber takes 20% and you want to stay under that. Are you going to hard cap that at 15%? Are you going to kind of leave that open-ended, or how's that look?
The local community cannot take more than 10%.
Okay, so you have overall, a cap on it.
There's 5% going within the Eva ecosystem. So there's 1% for the foundation for the technology itself. There's 4% which is distributed among all token holders. So everyone who staked their token, they get proportionally 4% of each ride.
As passive income.
Yeah, and then the local community can set up a share from the ride, but that cannot go over 10%. So the maximum can be 15%. And we need to understand that, and this is the case for, let's say, Montreal, the local cooperative needs this 10% to develop the market, to make promotion, to rent a space, and the drivers need this as well because there's so many requirements here. Drivers need to have a formation. Drivers need to have a criminal record background check. So we need people, actually real people working there, just to take all these files and to communicate with the government. So the cooperative here takes 10%, and this is for marketing, for the promotion, for local events, and everything.
Yeah, but the profit recorded by this cooperative, if there's some, are distributed as to the drivers. So basically, at the end of the year, when there's profit in a cooperative, it's distributed equally among all drivers.
So it's proportionally to their involvement within the cooperative. And Raphael mentioned this great point, is that this is one of the points that why we like cooperatives, that legally you can share profits without having to pay taxes on these profits. There's a special name for, we call them, what's the name in English? Kind of dividends, but it's not dividends, it's
yeah, and it's like that in Canada, but the cooperative system exists in many jurisdictions as well. So as Eva Foundation will be encouraging people to register cooperatives, but it can be incorporated companies, taxi companies, anything that wants to operate in a legit way.
Yeah, and I'm trying to wrap my head around and just kind of simplify the financials so that it's easy to understand. But basically, let's say that, is it fair to say Uber takes 20% of every ride? So let's say that Uber takes 20% of every ride, and that 20% goes to Uber, the corporation.
Yeah.
When you look at Eva in a comparison, it's capped at 15% of every ride, but a lot of that the profits are going back to Eva, the community, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it's coming back to token holders that can be drivers, can be investors, can be riders, and it's going back to the local cooperative operating their own node or community in their area.
Which then shares the profit.
Yeah, and there's a 1% that goes to the Worldwide Foundation to provide the technology.
So basically, Uber takes 25% for all its services. Eva, as a tech provider, takes only 1%, and this is what Eva takes as an entity. Then 4% goes to the token holders, and then the local co-op or community choose whatever they want to choose. But Uber takes 25%, which is a quarter of the ride.
Okay, and so that's how you see basically with Eva, the big idea behind Eva is people pay a little bit less for their ride, and the drivers and the community supporting the ecosystem make the profits. And
the local business supporting the ecosystem is local as well. So it's nicer for governments, for cities, and it's nicer for drivers because really often they're stakeholders in this local business as well.
Very cool. That is a big idea. So a little bit earlier, you guys mentioned when you're telling the story of the user experience that people sign up with a telephone number, and then the private keys are managed kind of in a behind a screen. So do they have to interact with their public and private key at all, or is it just just plug your phone number in and that kind of happens in a backdoor? And what's that look like?
Yeah, right now we're looking at wallet solutions on mobiles, but the problem is that at each smart contract call, the thing has to be signed. So basically, it would give a crappy user experience if you would have to open another app each time you're interacting with the smart contract, because our smart contract does a lot of stuff because it's ride sharing. So basically, it's all happening within the mobile app. It acts as a wallet as well for their private key and public key as a rider or driver as well. So it's all signed under the roof, and their account is with a normal password and with a mobile. But like Eva as an entity never have their private keys, because the user, when he's recording, we encrypt the private key with his password, and then we receive it so that like it's under the roof encrypted. So basically, if the servers of Eva would get hacked, nobody would have access to any identity or any private key of anyone. That's basically, but like it's all happening with the keychain of the local phone, so that it's within the app in the protocol, and people log in with their phone number and a normal password.
And then will people, when they're receiving let's say they're receiving a payout, they're receiving that in Eva tokens, and then is that automatically converted to USD and they can transfer it out, or then they can have tokens in the
Actually, the stable token is never shown within the app as a stable token. It's backed by the US cent. So basically, the driver only sees dollars within the app, and then when he pays back, when he wants fiat back, if he don't want to invest directly in the other token, which is the speculative one, so people get passive income from, they move it back to the exchange and get fiat money in exchange of their stable token.
Okay, or they can put it into the Eva token and stake it basically within the app.
Yeah, exactly, and receive passive income if there's a worldwide success from the 4% treasury we just talked about. So it gives a way for drivers to just make money like they do with fiat, because those people need to pay groceries and they need to get paid in fiat, because right now the world is operating in fiat money. We're not at this point where we have a good decentralized stable token. Once there's one on EOS, we'll just use it, because we'll be really glad to give this work to another bunch of people so that we can concentrate more on ride sharing. But now we had to come up with this stable token. Yeah.
So it sounds like hopefully Dan has this solution of a unique identity on the blockchain, and it sounds like that'd be a big piece to kind of streamline things for you. What is that? how's Dan's idea work? If you don't, and then
honestly, I've been seeing and talking with other mentors at the hackathon and Block One people. I've seen. I didn't know what Dan said, but I know there's KYC. People are talking a lot about KYC and identity on the blockchain. I think that's a great use case for blockchains. But in the current design of EOS.io technology, I just wonder how it can be done, because you can always exchange your own keys. So the keys cannot be binded to an identity because I can just change it. And also I can sell my account to another account name. So the account name can be changed, and the keys as well can be changed. So what is binded right now in the protocol, I don't know. So like,
right, I can go in on this a little bit more. Wordly.io is a sister chain to EOS.io, to the EOS mainnet. And so they're doing KYC on chain. And I feel like they're changing the software. So where you can't do a lot of those things that you mentioned, I mean, sure, you can change the keys, but that account will still be linked to some sort of identification. And you might need to redo it every time you change the keys. And then, of course, the other sister chain, Telos, they're going to provide a lot of ways so people can get accounts on a consistent and regular basis. So.
Interesting. Do you guys see that? Identity, some sort of identity solution, being an important part of Eva, or do you think that you can kind of run with it without that identity solution?
I think it'll be important, at least for the communities that want to come on, and for the driver members. But beyond that, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I guess with the reputation system. Go ahead.
Yeah, if there's a reputation system built in, if there's a crime or something happening in the community, that's local laws, and we can not compliant to the name or any information because it's a crime happening there. It's not basically the fault of Eva if like such a thing happens, but on the individual. So basically, we have a system for that, so that communities have a phone number binded to the account name for the drivers. Like when they're issuing it as well as other private information, like the brand of the car and like the name of the individual, so that they can reach themselves. And we have on-chain sharing of secrets, because when there's a ride, like the drivers needs to communicate with the rider their phone number. And there's an on-chain encrypted message that is passed within the smart contract, so that these two people can exchange a secret. And we're using asymmetrical encryption to do that. So basically, the rider sends his phone number encrypted with the public key of the driver, and the driver does the same thing to the rider.
Yeah. Well, that makes a ton of sense. Okay. Well, that's I can't wait till it comes to Santa Cruz. When it gets done, I'll help you guys set up your community. That's cool. What's your rollout plan look like as far as right now? You're in a launch city, and then kind of what you plan one by one, or what do the next steps look like?
Well, we have a set of priority. As Raphael mentioned, we have like some more technical work to do. We need to build this web platform for the local communities. We also want on the long term to develop intercity mobility within the options within the application. But so far, we've been in communication with several people from different cities. I will mention Algiers in Algeria, Mexico, Kosovo, Mexico in the state of Mexico, the city of Pristina in Kosovo, Austin in Texas, but as well several other cities.
Yeah, we have some people in New York too that are willing to launch Eva, and Toronto too.
And we've been in communication with people in Burundi from the city of Bujumbura. So as the moment there's people who wants to develop it, we just work with them.
And basically what's happening right now is we're having this open beta launch in Montreal as the first city where we're at. So we'll be launching the first community to actually see the process and improve it so that we can automate it for like other communities and create the software at the same moment, so we can facilitate other communities. And we also need to improve within the open beta the product, so we're sure that people like it and it's built the way the user experience is as good as it should be, because we need to provide tools for making it really easy to do ride sharing. And that's what we've been trying so far internally with the team. And now it's time to let the word out and let the people try it.
Do you see the expansion into cities? You mentioned a lot of cities outside, let's say North America. Do you see the expansion into cities, well, globally as kind of an easier foot in the door for beta testing before there's like these real heavy regulations, let's say in less regulated spots for testing?
Right now we launched in Montreal, which is an heavily regulated city. We could have gone somewhere else where it's a free market and you can just like take your car and use the app and it's working fine. But we feel like the most interesting markets right now are heavy regulated, because it's mainly in the US and Canada or Great Britain or a lot of those countries. And those markets are heavily regulated, and we need to come up with a way for communities to be compliant with those, because I think that blockchain should work in the real world and has to work with the laws providers so that we can operate well and actually create a business that is decentralized. So that's the way we're doing it. And we started with the most heavily regulated project. City.
But we've been in communication, as I told you, with people in Burundi, but I also forgot to mention Uganda. So in the city of Kampala, so there's a lot of cities in what we call developing countries, which are amazing countries, but in these countries where there's no regulation and people would like to have a ride-sharing application without any useless middleman. So we're also working with them. These are great opportunities. In most of these countries, the people are very young, so people knows how to use technology. So these are great opportunities for us. We have different issues there. Like it's not everyone who has a credit card. Most of the people just pay with like paper cash. So this is a problem too. So we're working with microcredit companies there or NGOs to see how we can fit their system within ours. So these are some challenges we have with more smaller cities or unregulated cities.
Yeah, I mean that's great that you guys are starting in Montreal and in places that are heavily regulated, because you get basically get the hard part out of the way and let it trickle down the other places. And I hadn't thought of that, because there's two big types of impacts that we look at here. There's the impact on somewhere like Canada or the United States, where Uber is, where basically the drivers are and the community are in need of a little bit lower fares, and the drivers deserve to be paid more, and you can localize and you can kind of decentralize this Uber corporation. But then on the other end, there's places where maybe they don't even have Uber, but they would like a tool to be entrepreneurs and develop their economy. And so you're not just getting rid of Uber. In some places, you're actually adding jobs.
Exactly, and Uber has had a difficulty to penetrate in those markets so far, because they're culturally not aware of how it works, basically. So that the decentralized way is helping us to get there, because the local people know their society pretty well. So that's a way, if with an abstract protocol that they can use to operate their business, they can install their community pretty well.
And just to let you know, I've been in Brazil like a few months ago, and people told me, Uber drivers told me, what people do there in order to use the connection that Uber provides, but not to pay within the Uber, is rider members call, like the riders call the rides, and once the driver is there, they cancel the ride. So they pay the cancellation fee, but they don't have to pay all the fees that goes like 25% for Uber.
Oh, wow.
People pay with cash. So people are aware, I feel, with like this kind of technology, but are also aware that 25% of each ride is too much. And this was really interesting, happening a lot in Brazil.
Wow, I hadn't heard of that. That's, I mean, when people are doing stuff like that, that's a great insight that the system isn't one size fits all. So that's a brilliant example. That's big. Yeah. What do you think your guys' biggest hurdle to overcome at this point for Eva is? What's like the toughest thing you're dealing with? And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because every startup has to overcome a lot of hurdles. I was actually listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast about Uber starting in San Francisco and how they just kind of started trying. I mean, they figured it out along the way, and look where they're at. So yeah. So anyway, what is the biggest hurdle for you guys at this point?
There's a lot of them at every level. I will say the legal way, like the legal aspect, the more financial aspect, the product itself. The biggest one I will say would be the
dilemma between the old corporate world and the new economy on blockchain. So that like a lot of investors are looking for equity, and we want to do a decentralized community with a foundation, so basically a DAC, so that there's a lot of challenges regarding this to find the proper way of doing things, accepting investment for them doing the launch in many cities over the world.
And one more concrete problem is also the market itself. We're launching in Montreal on October 29th, and it's really hard. In order to have a sustainable, self-reliant ride-sharing ecosystem, you need to have a shitload of riders to get drivers. And it's really hard to get people to migrate from Uber to Eva, and to get the common of the people just to download the app itself. Because some people will use it once a month, once like every 2 months. So we need a large amount of people in order to have like daily rides happening. And this is a huge challenge that we're facing right now with the first city, but we will be facing with other cities as well. So it's a learning process. We're always learning, and that's also a good thing though.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept to think about, kind of the chicken or the egg. Like, how do you get enough riders so there's enough drivers, and how do you get enough drivers until there's enough riders so that a rider always has a driver type of, what's that take? Does that take a big marketing campaign, or does that take you guys hiring a bunch of drivers that will be on standby to like make it happen? Or
actually, the strategy for this is going from within the markets, so that you use a referral system, and drivers can do Lyft, Eva, and Uber as well. But if they're shareholders for Eva, they can promote and refer it and get an incentive to refer some new users. So you can basically, those people can have the 3 apps running in background, and they get they actually do the drives for the ride that they get.
Okay, so that actually makes a lot of sense. Then it's not a chicken or egg the problem. It's the drivers come first, because they're already there working, doing that with Lyft and Uber. You just get them to add a 3rd app, and then there's a way to kind of onboard riders.
For the markets where Uber or Lyft is well installed, it can be a strategy for providing chickens that already have jobs and can promote Eva there, so that they're early adopters of the tech.
But also the local co-op community has some financial resources. So the co-op here raised a lot of money from local partners, and the Eva in Quebec, in Montreal, will be providing promotional codes the same way that Uber is doing in some cities. So there will be people in the university campuses or in the main places downtown Montreal providing promotional codes saying like, download the app and you get like 20 Canadian dollars for your first ride. So all these incentives, the idea is that we equip the community with several tools. So they have like this referral system. They can, the co-op will be also able to pay some drivers to be like working on at some like time slots in order to have like a supply. We will be having these promotional codes. So all these tools will be used by the local co-op with the data that will be on the the open ledger so that people will be able to make it work. But yeah, it's still a chicken and egg problem, but there's tools to reduce it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And you guys, it sounds like obviously you've got so many of these angles figured out. It's actually really impressive. For a lot of Dapps or projects I talk to, there's a lot of unanswered questions. With your team, it sounds like there's hurdles to overcome, but at least you've thought through every question. You have a way to attack it, and so I appreciate that. That's fantastic.
Well, I'm sure there's some of the questions we haven't thought about yet.
Well, you'll get to experience those along the way. Don't worry.
Yeah, but we're still looking for those questions really attentively. But thanks for the feedback. It's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you guys continue to put yourself out there like this, inevitably people have YouTube questions or questions on Steemit, or, they come up with this angle, you're like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. So I'm sure you guys will get some good feedback as you continue to launch here. Is there kind of any big picture things or anything you want to add about Eva, or anything you feel like we kind of glossed over at this point?
Well, we'll be stay tuned, because we'll be launching in Montreal on October 29th. There's a launching event here. So if you're listening and you're based in Montreal, please come. It's at our office space. The address is online, and we're also present on most of the social media. So Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Telegram, YouTube, Reddit, Steemit. So if you have questions, critiques, suggestions, insults, just share them with us.
Insults are best on Twitter.
We also have a Telegram channel on which you can just join in and chat with the team and all the community. So we just created this Telegram channel, and you can come and talk.
Cool. What is your website?
Our website is http Eva.Coop. So EVACOOP basically, and there's a dot between the two words, and you can get there, and the Telegram channel, the Twitter, and Facebook, everything's there.
There's a light paper as well as the white paper, only in English. We're working on its translation, but there's the white paper, which is pretty complete, explaining in a transparent way all the process, going from the technical stuff to more the
yeah, I think it's a 50 pages white paper. A lot of stuff is in there because we had to think about everything. But there's also a light paper if you want a summarized version of Eva as well.
Yeah, and I know Jake, the white paper guy, for a while probably helped with the white paper a little bit. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It was a fun process.
Yeah.
I think we've been working on this paper for months, so we're just happy that it's there. But it's a continual process. We're always updating it with new stuff. So
yeah,
and I'll be providing a link of the demo of the app that we have. So basically, if you want to have a sneak peek of the technology and see how simple it is and how it's working and how the UX looks, I'll be sharing it too.
Great. Yeah, I just noticed that your guys' website is Eva.Coop. I was thinking when I was spelling it, I was spelling it COUP, like kind of like a not even the correct spelling, but like a coupe, like a car. But it's actually co-op. Coupe,
yeah, co-op, exactly.
So it's like a little double meaning there.
Yeah,
so that's kind of cool. That makes it easy to remember. But Eva.Coop, cool. So I will, October 29th is the launch of the beta. www.eva.coop is your website. We're going to have a demo link in the show notes. So, and then you guys are all over the socials if people want to find you. And so any closing thoughts here? We can start with Dardan.
Well, I think we have a lot of challenges that we will still be facing, but we have a small but good team, well-prepared team, and we're also developing with partnerships with several other people. So I think we're in a good way. I just wanted also to thank you, Brandon. You were very attentive and friendly guy. So it was great to talk with you. Also, like, you have like, you know how to summarize well. So thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a last word for me, I think it's time for the blockchain communities and whatever chain you're on is to start making products that are simple and nice to use, because I think after 2017, we're at this point where projects actually needs to create value. And I think it's because blockchain can bring a lot of good, I think, depending how it's used. And I think it's pretty revolutionary. So I feel like it has to get mass market adoption. And I feel like we got to do that as people and for the best of humankind. So I think that's my last word for this podcast. And thanks, Brendan. It was really nice talking to you this morning.
You also. Mr. Jake.
You know, they said it all. You know, we need to actually provide value to people and make things easier than what they already have. Because people don't care for the most part. They just want it to be easier. And that's what we're trying to do here at Eva.
So
Absolutely.
Centralize and disrupt.
Yeah, and let's start making products where people are not the products, but are actually shareholders and they're part of the process itself, instead of being sold to other companies so you can sell them more stuff. I feel like all the users of any kind of technological application should now be shareholders and of the process of the tech or whatever. So I think it's great to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is really what this space is all about right now is finding a way to add value. That's what 2019 is all about. Adding some real value. We've gone through our little hype cycle where there's not a ton of value being added in relation to the amount of money flying around. So now we're in this next year is the year of adding value in whatever you can, in whatever way you can. So I appreciate you guys are doing that at Eva. So Raphael, Dardan, Jake, it was wonderful having you guys on. This is the EOS podcast, and this is my baby lately, the EOS podcast. I still do the YouTube videos, but I'm really feeling like the podcast people can listen on their way to work, and that's how I consume information more often, especially long interviews. So the EOS podcast is where I would like you, my crypto friends, to listen to stuff like this about Eva. And then there's the San Francisco Hackathon coming up, and I'll be at the San Francisco Hackathon as a mentor. I'll probably see Jake there, obviously. Will you guys be at the hackathon?
I'll be at the San Francisco Hackathon as well, so it will be nice to meet you in person there. Cool.
Well, I'll see you guys at the San Francisco Hackathon, and then the Monday after the San Francisco Hackathon, I'm the MC at a secret special conference where you guys can come meet some of the block producers and hear some great talks put on by Investing with a Difference, my buddy, and it's going to be in the Silicon Valley. So I'll be the MC there, and I will link the conference in the show notes. So and I'll give you guys a little discount in the show notes.
Well, I'll be there
for that conference, and Jake will be there too. Good. It's gonna be a big happy EOS family. We'll all be kicking it in the Silicon Valley in a few weeks. So, well, thank you, Eva, for coming on, and everything will be in the show notes, my crypto friends. And good to see you guys today. Have a great day.
Have a great day too. Thanks. Yeah, take care.
The money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is just